welcome to another episode of the MetalWeen podcast. And today is going to be a very interesting episode without a doubt, because today marks the 1 year anniversary of the DVD/Blu-ray release of Curse of Chucky. And today I'm going to be examining it. 1 year later, did I like it? Was it worth the hype? Well, that's what we're going to find out today. But first, it's time for the usual shout-outs. And a shout-out, as always, goes out to Chucky's Playground. Just a great place to be. You know, we have tons of conversations, rolling around on here. And currently we're talking about the possibility of a Chucky versus Annabelle movie. A lot of people have been talking about this kind of dream crossover. I'm not really a big fan of Annabelle because she just kind of sits there and does nothing. So, and I didn't really care for Annabelle anyway. So I would just be rooting for Chucky the entire time, not even giving her a chance, But I'd be interested in watching it, But it's kind of that dream matchup, like Freddy versus Jason or Alien versus Predator, Just kind of that dream crossover battle. And I wouldn't mind if someone made like a comic out of it. Because I think they did a comic of Freddy versus Jason versus Ash from the Evil Dead series. And I think that would fit a bit better in the comic book rather than the movie. But other than that, I think it's pretty interesting to talk about. But anyway, we at Chucky's Playground just talk about a lot of things like that, Chucky related, non-Chucky related. It's just a very great place to be, so definitely join up. And I also want to give a special shout out to Movie Mayhem with Spanky and G. Just a great podcast. Great chemistry. They do all types of great and terrible movies. They've done movies like Napoleon Dynamite and About Schmidt and Jack Frost, just movies like that. And it's just really, really entertaining podcast. And so if you haven't checked it out, definitely check it out because it's an amazing podcast, really great. And so now it's time to shoot the shuffle. At number 1, ROCK in the USA by John Cougar Mellencamp from Scarecrow. A really cool, kind of classic-esque rock song from John Cougar Mellencamp. Number 2, Hello Space Boy by David Bowie from Outside. Outside is a pretty underrated album. It's more industrial rock. It's kind of, I really like how David Bowie kind of changes his style. Especially in the 90s. He did that a lot in the 90s. It's really a really entertaining song. Very industrial. Number 3, Buick McCain by T-Rex from The Slider. Probably one of my favorite T-Rex songs. Really heavy, very raw, and it's just a really, really cool song. Number 4, Don't You Forget About Me by Simple Minds from The Breakfast Club. A really good new wave 80s song. Just really, really great. Number 5, Lost Woman Blues by Motorhead from Aftershock. A really great kind of rock ballad by Motorhead. And a ballad the only way that Motorhead can do it. Number 6, Anarchy X by Queensryche from Operation Mindcrime. This is a brief instrumental off Operation Mindcrime. It kind of introduces the album musically. Number 7, The Hammer by Death Clock from Death Album 3. Really heavy death metal song. Number 8, The Angle by Core from Away. A really good kind of mellow kind of song, and this was found on the Day of Reckoning soundtrack and WWE Day of Reckoning soundtrack and WWE WrestleMania 21 game for the Xbox. Just really great song that brings back a lot of memories. Number 9, Fly Away From Here by Aerosmith from Just Push Play. A really great ballad by Aerosmith from their 2001 album. And finally, number 10, Another Brick in the Wall by Pink Floyd from The Wall. Really great song from Pink Floyd's late 70s rock opera, and The Wall is probably one of my favorite albums of all time. I'd probably put it at number 11 on my top favorite albums. It's really, really great, and just a staple in the genre of progressive rock. So now Shoot the Shuffle is over, and now it's time to talk about Curse of Chucky 1 year later. And as I said before, today marks the official 1 year anniversary of the DVD/Blu-ray release of Curse of Chucky. So I consider it the official 1 year anniversary. And I watched Curse of Chucky on this day 1 year ago, having bought it on its first day of release. And I loved it. But, reflecting back, I wonder if I was in a blind stupor, so to speak. After all, it was just so great to be able to watch a brand new Chucky movie. It was the first Chucky movie in 9 years, and it was the first Chucky movie I was really looking forward to, having just become a fan. But I do wonder, did it live up to the hype? Is it really as good as I remember it? Was it really that good? Well, that's what I'll be discussing today. I'll be discussing the pros and the cons of this movie, as well as the experience of watching this movie for the first time. So, let's go. I probably won't discuss the full movie plot, since I've already done 2 reviews of this movie, but I'll go ahead and tell you the synopsis of it. The film centers around Nika, played by Fiona Dorff, who gets sent a mysterious doll named Chucky. Later that night, Nika's mother dies via an apparent suicide. Nika believes there's something more sinister to the doll. The atmosphere of the film is very cool. It's a complete 180 shift from the previous movie, Seed of Chucky. It feels more like the first 3 films, but with a bit of an even darker tone. And while I love the horror or comedy element of both Bride and Seed, it was time to return to the straight horror element of the first 3. And I really like the character of Nika in here. In my opinion, I think she's the best protagonist that the series has had. She just has great charisma and is very likable. The other members of the family are just okay. Alice is also surprisingly good as well, at least for a child actress anyway. The death scenes are also pretty good as well. It's probably the goriest Chucky film yet, which I like about it. Though Joe's death was kind of odd. I mean, she doesn't really react to being electrocuted. I mean, if you were electrocuted, would you sit perfectly still and turn your head slowly? Or would you scream like this? Yeah, that's what I thought. The other death scenes in the movie were great as well. Chucky has never really poisoned anyone before, so it was pretty cool to see the priest get poisoned as well. Get poisoned chili. Though the amount of close-ups were weird. Barb's death is also awesome as well, being stabbed in the eye. How cool was that? Who doesn't love an eye stabbing? Raise your hand. Put your hand down right now. But anyway, and Eden's death was just pretty awesome as well. And I really can't say I've ever seen someone's jaw hacked off like that. Now, we actually do flash back to Chucky's former life as Charles Lee Ray briefly near the end of the movie. And it's kind of weird, because in some ways, he's a bit out of a character. And I really don't think Charles Lee Ray would ever obsess over a pregnant chick. It just made him seem like a pathetic loser. I don't know. I never would. I always think of Charles Lee Ray as a vicious killer. You know, just bent on destruction and strangling people and just killing people in the worst possible way. And that's what the first 5 films, were doing. They just made Chucky just seem like this brutal, vicious killer. And in this one, it really just made him seem so emo. I don't know. It just felt weird. I also didn't really like how many cliffhangers there were. It kind of reminded me of The Empire Strikes Back. And I also didn't get why Chucky was going to transfer his soul into Alice. If he was so adamant about staying in a doll's body near the end of Seed, then why would he want to transfer his soul into anyone? And if he is going to transfer his soul into someone, why Alice? What would he have to gain from it? Granted, he does say that she is somebody that nobody would ever suspect. But if that means he's going to try and kill Annie as Alice, what good would that do? What's he going to do? Sell Annie poisoned Girl Scout cookies? This movie also had the lowest budget of all the movies, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. Some of the best horror movies of all time had a low budget. And for the most part, I don't really notice it. But near the end of the movie, you do kind of feel trapped in Nika's house. And that probably was the intended thing. I don't know, but you do kind of feel trapped in there and kind of begging to get out of there. And when it comes to the courthouse scene, it really does feel like a breath of fresh air. So, the design of the doll Chucky is also interesting as well. Though I do think he looked better in the other movies. I don't know. Just something about this design kind of throws me off. I like how both versions of Chucky were in there, both unstitched and stitched. But there's just something off about this version of the Chucky doll. I can't quite put my finger on it. Not to mention that I personally like the stitched design more. And I know I am the only one on this world, in this universe, that actually likes the stitched Chucky more than the unstitched Chucky. I don't know. I just think the stitched Chucky looks a lot more cooler. It looks more iconic, and I understand why people like the unstitched version more. The unstitched, he's able to blend in more and kind of sneak up on people. But I just like the stitched version more. I just think it looks more iconic, more cooler, and it kind of brings what we all know is that the fact that there is something not right about this doll. But that's just me, and I also didn't really like how how just stuffing just came out of him instead of blood. I think they said that it was supposed to be more creepier, but I think blood coming out of a doll is more creepier because it's something that shouldn't be coming out of a doll. But that's just me. I also love Tiffany's cameo in here. It was completely unexpected and awesome. I pretty much freaked out when I first saw her. I also loved how her killing the cop was pretty much a callback to her first appearance in Bride. So, overall, I liked Curse of Chucky. It's not really the best Chucky movie out there, but it's a great movie. And while I don't love it as much as I did back when I first watched it, I still think it's an extremely good movie that definitely lived up to the hype, and definitely brought Chucky back to life and in the mainstream. Because Chucky did kind of seem like a bit of a joke following Seed. And with this one, he was taken a lot more seriously, and it's just a pretty good movie. So that's all for and I'm really looking forward to Chucky 7, by the way. And considering the new news that I'll be talking about on this week's Chucky's Playground News, it's definitely going to be one interesting movie without a doubt. So that's all for today's episode of the MetalMat Podcast. Check in tomorrow for the next day of MetalWeen, and I'll see you then.